Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading, then we examine a single relevant question that passage points us to. Today I'm joined by Chris Rexroad, and we're looking at a passage from Leviticus chapter 23. There is this pattern of sevens. It's a unique pattern of sevens that we find in the commandment to observe the festivals of Israel. So there were 7 festivals throughout the year. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, trumpets, atonement, tabernacles. But during these festival seasons, there were 7 special days of rest. So the first and 7th day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Sabbath of the Feast of the First Fruits, the solemn rest day before atonement, the Day of Atonement, the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and the first day of the after the Feast of Tabernacles. And then furthermore, the 7th day of each week was to be treated as the Sabbath in Israel. And during these special days of rest, people were not to do any work. They were to attend gatherings, like according to the custom of each festival. Resting and worship was to be the order of the day. The Sabbath was intended to be an interruption to daily life, and the festival seasons constituted major interruptions to daily life. The Sabbath was intended to introduce variety into the rhythm of life. It was intended to create this priority in the rhythm of life. And so I think there's some things we can learn from this principle of the Sabbath and from festivals. One, God intends a weekly worship that is an interruption. God desires that the worship of the community doesn't look like every other day of the week. Worshiping God is intentional and requires effort because God is worthy of such effort. I think God intends weekly rest to give us variety. Days begin to bleed into each other. Amen to that, right? Without this occasional change of pace, and the variety refreshes us. It gives us a chance to recuperate. And the break in our weekly schedule also indicates that worshiping God is to be a priority because it is interruptive and intentional. It causes us to keep our perspective that God is worthy of worship and He deserves to be a priority in our life. Chris, our fast-paced society has caused us to cater to our communities through a variety of service times, activities, seasonal themes. Do you think we've made worshiping God collectively too convenient because we've catered to keep people's schedules instead of trying to force them to interrupt their schedules?
Yes, but I think it's like anything else. If you don't adapt as the decades go by, you're eventually going to become unrelatable and people are just going to move on without you. Not to say that they're going to move on and not be interested in following Christ, but what you're trying to teach them. So this past Sunday, you had made mention of missing Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that probably doesn't work too well today. But you guys have moved on to
Right.
that to accommodate where you can get people to come in consistently. But you've also brought in other things like this podcast to where people can be connected on a daily basis, and it is convenient. We just find new methods. We don't change the message, but we find new methods of delivering it and trying to get people engaged.
Do you think that allows people to continue to be busy and not interrupt their schedule?
Yeah, I think it definitely can. I really like that quote, and I'm not going to try to quote it that John used from the book that you guys are going through. That if you make your life more efficient to give yourself more time, but you only become busier with something else, do you really consider that like success or good for you?
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the big things is that we try to make it convenient for people to a degree, but we also want them to realize the importance and significance of not just coming to church, but being a part of the church and being the church.
This is a real debate because the question becomes, when I was younger and when Sunday night was, my life revolved around the church growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the church revolves around people's lives for a lot, whether it's, okay, we're providing a podcast, we're providing streaming, we're providing multiple service times, whatever that looks like. there is some challenge to that, about priorities. That's the only question that I have is, you know, is it a priority? And I have some Jewish friends that I have a business relationship with, and they always tell me, because I'll visit them. They live in New York City occasionally, and I'll visit, or we'll have a transaction going on, and they'll tell me, days ahead, like this is whatever Shabbat, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
Shabbat, Passover, whatever's coming, and in all the festivals, it's like it said here. There's only 7 days that they can't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the entire Passover period that they can't work. It's only a period of time. But, on Friday evenings, like clockwork, his phone goes off and it doesn't come back on until Saturday evening, So if you
Yeah.
need to reach him, you're just out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't consider him to be a devout Jew, like going to a synagogue and worshiping those kind of things. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's not what I believe. But they they are intentional about the interruptions, and sometimes it's inconvenient for me. No doubt, sometimes it's inconvenient for them. I
Mm-hmm.
have no doubt that they miss some things from time to time in business because of it. They shut down. I don't remember which festival it is, but they shut down on Thursday and they open back up on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't do much of that here. Even Christmas
Yeah.
stores open back up now. A
Yeah.
lot of them. Thanksgiving Day. There's just not that interruption. We don't like to be
Yeah.
inconvenienced. Um, and should we view some of those interruptions more positive than we do negative?
Yeah. Yeah. We should. I mean, like the question that you asked, about making things more convenient, does that allow people to be busier? It gives them the opportunity to. They would have to make the choice on that, but I definitely think that having those things that cause you to pause, it's a good thing. I mean, we've talked before about pausing and reflecting, but I think pausing in life, like Jenny and I just got back from a vacation that took us a while to get to, and before that, I mean, it's been nonstop, and it was really good to kind of have that pause, even though it was a vacation. It wasn't any kind of religious pause. In a way, it was a little bit for us,
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are to get people today to adapt to that would be incredibly challenging.
Yeah, because our priorities are different,
Hmm.
And so is worship, like coming to church for you. Obviously, it's vocational,
Yeah,
but is it more of a discipline or a joy?
for me,
Yeah.
definitely joy. I'm trying to think if there's scenarios where I feel like it's a discipline. Not really. I think for that right there, I mean, transitioning it depends on your intention. Like if we're just talking about somebody in general, their intention of why they're coming to church. For a new believer, there's an excitement. For a teenager, they might be getting dragged to church. I remember that. Not necessarily our kids, but they have different priorities, different things they want to do. But I think as Christ becomes more real to you and you want to be more a part of him, it begins to flip from discipline to joy. And what I do is I look at Sunday morning as like a fresh start to the week. This is how I'm starting it. I'm starting it with Christ and worshiping him and pretty much setting myself up for the week to go and continue to worship throughout the week, but it being like the fresh start.
Yeah.
How about you?
I love to preach. That it's rare that would be I have to do it. Um, Even studying, I enjoy studying the preparation piece of it. Um, the machinations of church are a discipline sometimes.
Like an example.
On a Sunday, there are a lot of moving pieces.
Hmm.
And when one of them don't work, it's really frustrating,
Hmm.
right? And it's stuff that the average person doesn't know, doesn't see. Occasionally it'll bubble out where you'll see it, right? But there are a lot of things that need to move smoothly. We need internet.
Hmm.
Um, we need people to be able to check in. We need our volunteers to show up. You take one band member or one vocalist off the stage for sick or whatever, it just throws a kink in the armor, or a track don't start when it should, or somebody didn't tune their guitar, they open the door too soon at the back, and I'm in the invitation and I hear people chattering in the back, and I'm trying, come to Jesus, if you can hear Jesus over the folks in the lobby, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The machinations, the way church works, the things that make church work, as far as like the preaching, the worship, the meeting the people, hanging around with the people, talking to the people, I love that. But the machinery of church that happens sometimes, like, okay, this has just got to be done. Suck it up, make it happen, get through it. Sometimes it goes without a hitch, right? But other Sundays, you can I can tell when I walk in the building what kind of Sunday it's going to be. Because usually one or two things are already wrong before I get here. And I'm not always the last staff member, but I used to be the first person on site, and I'm not the first person on site anymore. But when I led worship, I was always the first person here.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not always the first person here. But so usually when I get in the building, I can always tell, like, something ain't, going exactly right. They got vacuum cleaners out.
Wendy's on the floor scrubbing
People's
the
walking across the parking lot with a bag of trash, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I know, I was like, oh, here we go, right? We're going to have a day. And it's that's the piece of it that I have to push through.
Yeah.
The worship piece of it and setting the time aside. I want to come to church, right? I don't know what I would do if that wasn't a part of my life. And I do miss Sunday. I miss the Sunday night fellowship piece. I don't miss the Sunday night. What I wanted to say Sunday, and we got to wind this podcast down. What I wanted to say Sunday, but I didn't have the guts enough, and apparently I'm going to have guts enough to say it I didn't like the mediocre services on Sunday night. They let the worst singers sing. Most of the time the messages were half baked. They hadn't spent a lot of time on them. The services were just mediocre. I'm not saying they were all mediocre. I'm just saying they were a lot of times mediocre. This pastor would put together the sermon on Sunday afternoon, after his nap, and they were just mediocre services. The fellowship was what I missed, and so I don't like mediocre church.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not a fan. So. Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us Monday as we continue a conversation around our daily Bible reading.